Hello and welcome to this video. This video is a boot camp to give you a cursory overview on some of the very basics of XML, specifically the differences between HTML and XML, and an overview of Notepad++. In Notepad++, the way you open up that application if you're on a university computer is that you go to the bottom left-hand corner, click on the Start button, navigate up to a folder that will say something like Text Editors. There, inside that folder, you should find the icon to open up Notepad++. Once it's open, it'll look something like this. And inside your plugins, you want to make sure you have XML tools. Now, if it's a university computer, it should already be installed. If you're using your own computer at home, you're going to go to plugins, and again, you should have already done this through the guide that's posted on the course website. If you do not have XML tools here, you'll go to Plugin Manager, Show Plugin Manager, Available, and in here, somewhere down here, you'll see XML tools. You'll click on it, do something like that. Click on the one you need, click Install, and it will install it for you. Let's just go over a little bit of the basics between XML and HTML. Some of you all in the class may have taken HTML before, so you'll see some similarities, but there are major distinctions, and they should be pointed out now. One, that XML is not a replacement for HTML. They still both need to exist in the world. We will actually do some HTML toward the end of the class, but the main thing to remember about HTML is it's about displaying information, and XML is about describing information. Let's talk about some of the syntax differences. I'm just going to do a little bit of HTML here. We're not going to do a lot, but just a little, just so we can see some of the gotchas that you might run into. Okay, so I've marked up dessert here. It's a word, something I might put on a website, and I have a heading tag, heading 3, it's H3. Again, these are predefined tags, remember, in HTML, and then I have a heading 3 that closes out the tag. In HTML, this would render fine, dessert would pop up in big text via the browser. In XML, you would not even get that far because this would be considered illegal, and the reason is that we have a opening tag in uppercase H3, and we have a closing tag in lowercase h3. That's illegal. In order to make it legal, you'd have to do that. That would fix that. Something else to make note of that's different from HTML and XML is that this extra space in there, browsers, how they're designed to render HTML, basically they sort of fix things for you. So if you're a sloppy HTML coder, it'll often fix a lot of things in it. So one of them, if this was to be rendered via a browser, this space would be just deleted and it wouldn't even show up. So dessert would just show up with no spaces in front of it. On the other hand, if you have spaces there, and this is an XML document, say we had something like this, and we'll talk about XML tags in a little bit, but just so it looks a little more accurate, this white space in here, or spaces, these would be preserved. So the assumption would be that you would want those spaces in there, and it would be preserved in there. So don't try to this is where a lot of students kind of get into trouble, or people first learning XMLs, they'll try to kind of neaten up their XML code. Don't worry about that. Just keep them nice and tight like that, and you only want to use a space unless there's a compelling reason. So there, obviously, there's a space between dessert and menu, and you want to leave that there. The other thing you cannot do in XML that you can in HTML, I could do something like this. I can put a p tag here, and a browser, it's a paragraph tag. Again, this would be an HTML tag. The browser would render that in a browser, and it would look fine. It would render dessert menu. If this was a XML element or tag that we were putting in here and we did not close that out, that would be illegal. So you cannot have unclosed tags in XML. Just something to be mindful of. Those are some of the major gotchas, I guess, between HTML and XML just in terms of coding. I thought what we could do now is look at um, an actual set of information that we would like to mark up. So let's look at this here. We have what looks like basically a book with some book information. Here we have what looks like a creator or an author, perhaps a book title, maybe a topic, book section, subject. Here was what looks like a price. Here's a date that's been formatted to the ISO formatting standard. And then here we have what looks like a description or some kind of information about the book. So let's just walk through this together and maybe come up with some ideas of how we might mark this up. So here we have a author. Well, why don't we just call it author, and we'll do that. And then we need to close this out, right? So we'll do something like that. And you'll notice in Notepad++ that it will recognize closed tags this way. So if the tag is opened, it'll find basically its mate, and it'll render in the color purple. And you can see the XMLs in blue. Alright, let's go on the next line. How about we just do title? Some of this is kind of self-explanatory, so we'll do this. And let's just try this and see what happens. Okay, so it still does this. This is not, it helps you out some, but if you have a, obviously that's not closed out perfectly, so if that is not in lowercase and exactly like the opening tag, you'll still turn purple, but it'll be incorrect. How about we do subject here? Close it out with subject. Again, / to close it out. Perhaps price. Oh. And how about description for this? I think this works well. And then I hit the end button to get to the end of that line. It's kind of handy. And then it actually shows us that. And let's save this. We go here to save. If this is red, that means it's not saved. I will remind you this throughout the course, but that if you do not save a file that you're working on and you try to run it or do some kind of XML procedure on it, and to let Notepad++ say validate it or check to see if everything's legal. If it's not saved, it will not recognize it, so you have to click save. And I'm just going to do a save as and show you how to save it. I have it already saved once, so I'm going to just save a second version of that. Maybe I'll just put the letter A at the end, or B rather, a little space. And here you have a drop down of options. You'll want to save it as extensible markup language. You can see all the versions of XML. You'll click on that and it'll automatically put in .xml in there and save that for you. Okay, so we have this saved. Let's look at some of the other things we might want to do. We have a book here. Perhaps this is a book library and we might have many books in it. So what we might do is create a parent and add some basically hierarchy to this document. So we might do something like this. And then at the bottom here, close it out with book. What I just did there, I'm just going to back up as pretty print. This makes it so your tags and your elements and so forth are indented in a way that makes it easy for you to read it and to correct it if things need to be corrected. So you just go to Printy Print, and this is something you can find in a lot of different editing applications. So it makes it nice and indented, and so what we have here now is a parent, and then here are children. All these here are children of book. And then all these children are siblings because they're all on the same level. One other thing we might think about doing is creating a root tag. So let's say we do something like catalog, and then we'll close it out down here, and it does a little auto suggest, and so we have catalog, and we can again go to plugins and do pretty print. Pretty print is only for you to look at. It does, the computer could care less if things are indented or not. It just makes it easier to see where the parents and children, and really see the basic hierarchy of your XML document. If I wanted to, I could add another book here. If I could just copy that, enter, and then here I could put in another name. We could put in Herman Melville, change that to Herman Melville. We could put in Moby Dick. We could put fiction here, $12.95 for the book, the date when it was published, or maybe when the recent edition was, and it's a book about a fictional book about whaling. So we have two, if you will, records that are in this. If any of you have taken database work or spreadsheets or whatever, this is like an extra row or a record in a database. And then here what we have is catalog at the top, and this top node or top tag we call the root element, and every single XML document that you're going to create for this class has to have a root element. So let's save that, and so we have a root element, catalog. And then what we might want to consider doing, I'm just going to delete this extra record here and simplify it, go back to how we were. I'm going to put an attribute in there. And so for an attribute, we need a name of the attribute, and then we need to set it equal to some value, and we're going to have double quotes, and inside those double quotes we'll put in some kind of value, and we could do something like this. So book 101. So basically what this might be, this is an attribute, and we'll talk more in detail about what elements, attributes, root nodes, that sort of thing is, hierarchy. But this is something just to get you going. But basically this little attribute is kind of a facet of the element. We can put that in there and save it. And basically what we have here is our first XML document. And we will